Hello, welcome to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here to talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol.
The name's Cable. Remember it.
Hello, welcome back to Cable's Conquests. Today I'm hosting, and I'm not joined by Curtis. I'm joined by Harry. Harry, how are you doing?
Hello, yes, I'm doing well, thank you. Very happy to be here. I will try my best to take Curtis's place briefly, but I'm sure one episode will be enough.
No, it's very exciting to have you here. Exciting to have a bit of variety on the podcast. No offense to Curtis. But also, we're talking about a really fun event that happened in London recently that unfortunately Curtis couldn't make, which was the GT. So it was our first official GT in London. I was there. I took my spider foes, so I thought rather than repeating our last episode to the listeners, we'd get someone new on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found the GT, how excited you were for the GT to get our sweet, sweet yellow dice?
No, I was very hyped for the yellow dice, and they actually rolled really well throughout the days, and that was really good. And yeah, been a lot of build up to this one. I was excited for it, obviously with Nations on the horizon as well. It felt like probably, at least for me, one of the last big kind of tournaments to get more practice in. But also I really like the pod format that they do, where at the end of the first day, depending on how you do, you get put into different pods with players who perform similarly. But it was a little bit of a weird one for me in that I wasn't unfortunately able to make the second day of the event because of a family event. So talked to Jamie, and he was very nice and basically said, if we can find someone to take your place day two, which I did. Ron very nicely helped me out. And the little quirk was that Ron had to play my list in day two. So the poor guy had to get to grips with X-Force on day two. But no, it was fun. And I think also I was probably feeling so tired after day one that I was like, you know what? Yeah, Ron can take day two. It's fine.
Yes, the pod system, I love the pod system as well. It's the same system that we've done for the weekenders. In fact, Jamie and Norbert were both running this event, and Jamie managed to convince AMG to adopt the pod system for this GT, which is great. And it was, 40 players in the end, which is pretty good given, we had the weekender just over a month ago. So there's really like an influx of players coming to these big events, which is great to see. So clearly Jamie and Norbert are doing something right. And it was cool to get all the AMG swag. Yeah, so we just came on the Saturday. We didn't have any kind of warm-up games. I only came down on the Saturday morning this time. You kindly put me up on the Saturday night. That was very good. And this is your reward.
Yeah, exactly. Your payment to me for staying was I demanded an appearance on your podcast and put the cable back in Cable's Conquest.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So without further ado, why don't we go and build your roster?
You're boring me. If you want to help me nail them, get your team together and let's get started.
So, Harry, we've got one day to shine, and you're also setting up Ron's roster for him. So why don't you run us through what you're playing?
Yep, so for characters, we have Cable, Deadpool, Domino, Wolverine, the OG Wolverine, X-23, the Mighty Thor, so Jane Foster, Miles, Colossus, Black Panther, the full threat version, and Bishop. For tactics, we have Weapon X program, which is the little throw you can do on OG Wolverine, Brace, Sacrifice, Cat and Mouse, Preserve the Dream, Instant Recovery, Recal, Fastball Special, Warpath, and Survival. And then the crises are Deadly Meteors, Wedding Party, and Emcran for Secures, and then Hammers, Alien Ship, and Inhumans Deploy Advanced Weaponry, one of the new ones for X-Rays.
Nice. So, you're playing X-Force, I guess. You actually, I just noticed, have all your splashes are also leaders.
Yeah.
You just don't have any other affiliated characters for those affiliations.
No, yeah.
So why don't you tell us a bit about your history with X-Force? Why are you playing X-Force?
So X-Force were, I think when I started playing, so I had Ollie, who plays defenders a lot, and he got me into the game. I think my practice game was actually Spider Foes. I was playing it, but
Nice.
then when I actually came to pick an affiliation, X-Men 97 had just come out, so I was really wanting to crack on with mutants. And Ollie was saying that X-Force is a pretty simple, I guess, affiliation. You want to kill stuff. The actual leadership is just re-roll the dice. You don't have to think about too much. They haven't got too many crazy tactics cards to get your head around. And also, Ollie very nicely had quite a few of the models he could loan me to try them out with. And I took them for 2 tournaments when I started out, and this was literally like my first and second month of playing. And obviously I went 04 because it was London and Brighton, and very, very good players. But I learned a lot and I did really enjoy it. But I switched to X-Men because we had some team tournaments that I was signed up for. And I think definitely around that time last year, X-Men were kind of viewed as a good team to have. I was keen to explore more with them as well because they're different play style. But after about I think towards the end of last year, I really wanted to go back to X-Force. And so for the last 6 or 7 months really, I've been playing X-Force almost exclusively, apart from one tournament.
Yeah, and that was when you swapped rosters with Ollie, right?
Yeah, I played Strange Defenders for a laugh. He played X-Men, and we both learned a lot about each other's rosters.
Nice. Yeah, so X-Force, you've been really hammering. So you must have had, 30 plus games with them now?
Yeah, I've got the badge on Longshanks for 30 plus games.
Nice.
Which is very fun.
Nice.
And I'm definitely hoping to get the 51.
Nice. I guess you've got a few teams events coming up. And I guess X-Force, like looking at this roster, are reasonably good for teams because they've got a lot of, I guess you've got 7 affiliated characters. Is that right? So you're really going heavy on X-Force. So when you started playing X-Force, was Cable better? Had Cable been buffed by then? I can't remember the timelines.
Yes, he had, thank God. Yeah. I pretty much, I think it was a couple of months after the buff that I started playing, yeah.
Nice. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what core characters do you bring to the table every time?
So 17 threat is obviously a really common threat in the game to play against, and it's normally a very simple decision for me in that it is what I call Cable and the threes. So you basically just take Cable, Miles, X-23, Domino, and Deadpool, and I find that a really versatile, fun group that I think are really good at like trading upwards. Like a lot of them can really punch above their threat level.
Yeah.
And they're also pretty much all quite mobile and dynamic. And I think the only thing it suffers from is a little bit of lack of character displacement. Sure. But if things are going well, you're probably just killing stuff, taking their extracts, and then not quite running away, but I do think my aim is to kind of score out a lot of the time, but just by getting the key dazes off. Yeah. And Miles stealing an extract from someone, flipping an M-Crown crystal, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's definitely the core.
Yeah, I guess that's quite an interesting thing. Is I guess generally the problem with X-Force is that characters have virtually no displacement. Yeah. They're affiliated characters, I mean. So yeah, I guess bringing in Miles helps with that a little bit. But yes, when you're definitely an attrition team, but you're probably not going to table your opponent. No, I guess that's the point.
No, that I think that's only happened a few games that I played in, and that was definitely the dice being quite kind a lot of the time. Yeah. So I view them as like really good extract hunters and also some quite resilient extract holders on their 3 threats as well. And then Cable, hopefully at 17, can dominate a game if your opponent does not have kind of as big a threat as him or something that can really make his day quite rough. So it does hinge a lot on him though in that. But I think also even on D maps, I quite like them at 17. I prefer 18 because then I can get Black Panther in. Domino, who I think normally you think, she's got a double move, that's not that great. But I remember at the Weekender in January, I was watching someone play Ollie from the Swedish team. Very good player from, I think it's Huggy Bear's team. And he was playing X-Men. And I was like, why have you got Domino on a D map? And he was like, she's great. You just double move her to 1 point. And then anyone who's on that point with her knows they either have to move away or they're just going to get shot to pieces. And I think that threat of her is so good because I put Cable on the other side of the D map. And then it's like, crap, where do I go? If I go here, then Cable shoots me on the other side. But if I go here, then Domino shoots me on the other side. So
yeah, and I guess Cable's got the range, even though it's range 5, so it's not as good, but to get to the 2 Ds that he's not on, Yeah, that's interesting because Domino is also a really horrible target
Yeah,
to
yeah,
try and take out because she's she's only a 3 threat, but she really requires a lot more effort.
yeah.
I just noticed you don't have any 2s. Do you find you've got enough flex? I guess with the new Crisis landscape, you only really need to go 17 to 20. So I guess, do you just add 4s as you go up? You swap your 3s out for 4s? Is that generally how it works?
Yeah, pretty much. I have been thinking more about two. I just think part of the problem is that, especially as soon as I saw the Bullseye nerf was coming, I was like, he'd probably be my best two. And now he's still, I'm sure fine, but it doesn't make me think, oh, I need to get that in there.
Yeah.
And then probably the other option is maybe Rocket, who I think could actually be
Yeah.
interesting.
I know you like your tricks and traps as well.
Yes, I do. Yeah, and also part of the problem is that you kind of really want Groot with him a lot of the time. I think he'd still be fine again. And then obviously you've got Honey Badger, who actually is affiliated, who I really love and I played a lot of in a previous version of this list in the run up to the first weekender. But that was when we started EMAPs, where I think she was really, really strong on. Whereas now in this new kind of slightly more spread out Crises, it's a bit harder to find where she's really going to have the most effect. But I'm definitely at the moment thinking perhaps dropping Colossus, for example, for a 2 to give myself a bit more flexibility. But the kind of funny thing about having a 5-threat leader is that you actually need less options because like you've got less options anyway. So and because I really like that 17 of all the 3s, and I could do 3 4s as well.
Yeah.
I've been less inclined to think about 2. But after this tournament, I was thinking about it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about your 4s. So I guess, because you've got your 3 affiliated 4s, like Wolverine, I guess, does a lot more killing. Bishop is pretty good now, especially with that buff. What about Colossus? I know he's been through the ringer in terms of upgrades. How do you find him now that he's been upgraded again?
So I think he is much better now, but the problem is that he's really power hungry, and off a 5 dice build of 1 reroll, I'm not sure he's doing everything he kind of needs to be in this roster. So I think he's mainly there for me for Fastball Special, which
nice.
I think when you can get that, him and Wolverine in at 19 on a fighty map, especially with the amount of like Mephistos that are around, you're having Weapon X program and Fastball Special, that can potentially be a days on Mephisto. And obviously none of that has to be in their activation as well. You can go with Cable, throw the terrain, shoot at him, and then throw both those characters into him. Obviously, you got to be a fair bit of power in there as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because I guess actually this list built around Cable has pretty good terrain throws.
Colossus can throw terrain with his superpower, and then he's now got a wild throw on his spender.
Okay, nice. So yeah, you do have reasonable access to terrain throws, and I guess Bishop helps with your displacement then if he's got a character throw too. So I guess we touched on Miles being that kind of extract. You're helping you get your extracts back and a little bit of control. What about Mighty Thor and Black Panther? Are they similarly in there for that kind of thing?
Yeah, so Mighty Thor is just, for me, one of the best characters in the game. I think she's incredible. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say at all.
Yeah.
And when you can go at 19 with Jane, Cable, and 3 3s, feels pretty good. Like it's you're basically saying here are 2 of the best 5 threats in the game, in my opinion. Can you deal with both of them? And often the answer I found is no. Like, I think I haven't looked at it properly, but my win rate with Jane is probably a lot better than my win rate without Jane. She just does so much. And obviously with the X-Force leadership on her charge, you really just max out that damage off a 6 dice builder often because you reroll 2 and then you can reroll out of your skull. Well, I think most of the time you're hitting the wild off that to then throw them. So yeah, she's just very efficient. She kind of basically does, like when I'm looking at my splashes, I'm looking them to do the things my list can't. So what I lack in my list is resilience. All my guys are glass cannons.
Yeah.
I'm lacking displacement in terms of characters, and she is obviously an 8 health character who can reroll defense dice. I can buff them, eat all of her defense dice up to 6 with Cable.
Yeah.
And then she can throw people on her wild spender twice a turn, which is
that's really good. Yeah, getting the wild off 6 dice, you've got it pretty reliably on one of those attacks. And then if you've built enough power, you can then do it like a terrain throw or something like that. So yeah, that seems pretty sweet.
But her and Panther also both help with what my list wants to do, which is to ban Brace as soon as possible.
Right.
Because Cable on his own in that 17, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to get them to ban Brace so that you can start really doing damage on your turns. Whereas when you have either Panther or Jane or someone else who's doing a throw, suddenly it's the value of Brace is soaring in terms of what your opponent needs to do and think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, to talk about Panther briefly, he is so good into characters like Quicksilver and Toad, who are obviously especially Quicksilver becoming more common, and it is so good when you do Mantle of the Panther and then you can re-roll out of your skull that you rolled, re-roll all of those dice, and suddenly you're doing 6-7 damage, and then pushing them as well because he's got the displacement. But yeah, I find him, my win rate into teams like Webs is pretty good when I can go 18, especially if Hammers is my extract on a DMAP, because suddenly Panther is able to chase them around, re-roll all his dice, and really be a menace. So yeah, he's kind of there to, when, even though I've got some fairly good mobility on my kind of base guys, I think he's there when I really need to make sure I can chase after people like Inhumans or Webs.
Yeah, and I guess Panther as well, because he's not your leader, he can just be quite aggressive and like dive a back point or grab a middle point, and he's pretty tanky. Like with those counting blanks, obviously it needs to be against non-mystic attacks, but
yeah,
counting blanks and Cable buffing his dice, like that can be really hard to chew through.
Yeah, he's got the resilience and then also the pounce, obviously, to really, if they burn Brace against Cable and his terrain throw, then suddenly, especially into characters like Black Cat, where your rerolls aren't very good, but hopefully if you've often in a DMAP, I'll double move to their back point with Panther on one turn so that he's right next to Black Cat, so he can double attack her, and then you're feeling hopeful that you'll get at least 2 power to then pounce, and that is normally, without some crazy dice in there, a dazed Black Cat, who is so annoying for my list because I cannot reroll anything into it.
Yeah, and you actually don't have that big dice pools.
No, yeah.
I just want to touch briefly on your crises. You've got pretty fighty secures, which I guess is not surprising, but there's also 2 pay to flips in there, and I guess, is that because of the map shape rather than the pay to flip?
I think I used to like pay to flips, and then Apocalypse reared his head, and I think they're a little bit vulnerable to certain matchups, but because of the shape, you feel kind of a little bit obligated to take them. Sometimes I am, because I've talked a lot about DMAP. Sometimes I am tempted to be like, maybe Riots or something, but unfortunately it's 17, and I really want 18 for that DMAP to get in Panther.
There aren't any 18 DMAPs nowadays.
Yeah, I don't think so. No. So yeah, it's mainly to get the team at least around you and within range. And yes, I don't have any natural kind of advantage on pay to flips, but I would say a lot of my characters like Deadpool and X-23 and Miles are good at pay to flips. They get the extra movement, and they can kind of dance around everyone pretty easily. And Cable is good at pay to flips as well.
And I suppose with the combination of having the re-roll, you're generating power a little bit better, and also a lot of your characters have quite long range attacks. Like Cable's got range 5, Deadpool's range 4, Domino's got range 3 and 4. You're actually able to keep up, because a lot of the time if you're playing an attrition list into pay to flips, they'll just flip the points and run away from you, but it's quite hard to run away from you with the long range guns.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where I don't think I'm bad at it by any means. I think I've got a good game on it, but I think there are some teams who play those secures and extracts better. I think definitely something like Wedding Party I'm a little less sure on, in that it's fighty, it's good for me, but I think there are some teams who do it better, and I think there are some teams who are better at kind of no-selling you on one point and then climbing up on another, and so that can be a little bit difficult. And I guess Alien Ship is probably the other thing I'm unsure of sometimes, in that it's cool, it's fun, it can really work, but it's also unreliable and can backfire usually.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to take Bishop on Alien Ship.
No, yeah. But I have had games where it has really worked out well. I think also some of this list, I don't claim to be like the most competitive player in the world. I'm playing X-Force, but some of this list is also molded around what I'm taking to nations, so it might not always be the most optimal thing, but it's also really good practice for me. At the same time, the last 2 weekenders I had a positive record in I think the
Nice.
most recent one I had 1-5 lost 2, and so I was really happy 3-1 and then 2-1 on the second day, and I had a good game into pretty much most of the players I faced, and felt confident about it. So
Nice.
I don't think even if you're taking not the most optimal thing doesn't mean that you're suddenly down and out. It's just you acknowledge that you don't have some of the natural advantages that another team might enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is that actually MCP, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and just because you're not taking the most meta piece, you could swap out Black Panther for Shang-Chi, and maybe that makes your roster better, maybe it doesn't, but Black Panther has still got really good game. You don't see him around much, so it's cool that you've managed to find a place for him that's not in Wakanda, where he really doesn't really have a place anymore because of King T.
I also say briefly about Shang-Chi. It's one that, and the same with like Zemo, those are probably two quite obvious exclusions that you might look at for an X-Force list.
Yeah.
Both of them are amazing options. I would never say, don't take them. They're really, really good. But Shang-Chi, for example, is good and obviously gets a lot from Cable out, buffing his dice. But sometimes you're looking for character to help you out on a specific matchup. And for Shang-Chi, him and the leadership, like, yes, he gets the 1 reroll on 6 dice. That is good. That's always good. But the leadership works amazing on characters like Black Panther, where they're rerolling all their dice and you need to dig them out of the skulls. Whereas sometimes you can roll 6 dice with Shang-Chi, get 2 successes, reroll 1, still fail, and then great, they block 2. That can happen a lot. Whereas when you do Mantle of the Panther, it doesn't matter what they're doing, unless you get some very bad luck, you are doing well there.
Yeah.
So I think as well, talking about that specific D map shape that I want to be able to have someone like Panther on. Obviously, Shang has the charge. I'm not saying he's bad on a D map, but he's nowhere near the specialist for me that Panther is on it.
Yeah.
And doesn't do what I need that character, that full threat to do in that matchup. So again, like, take him. He's going to be great. He's going to do really, really well. But for me, I was like, I need this piece to help me out on that specific matchup.
No, that sounds really good. Well, it sounds like you've put a lot of thought into this roster and you've played a lot of games, so I'm excited to hear about some of the tech that you come up with in the game as well. So why not we stop there and we'll talk about your game 1 in the next segment.
Awesome.
So, game 1 of the first official GT in London for Marvel Crisis Protocol. What are you facing across the table? And who?
I thought you were going to say what, as in what kind of person. No, I was playing against a Hydra Crims roster, and this was helmed by AJ.
Ah, okay, a local.
A local, yep. And we had played at most recent weekender in round 2, and I'd managed to get the better of him there with some very kind dice. So I knew he was quite keen for revenge, I think.
This roster is probably one of those that mirrored a lot of people's rosters in that it was a Kingpin Criminal Syndicate, kind of almost splash, and then another choice of roster. There was a lot of these hybrid, which was Kingpin Criminal based, and then
normally something that can fight a bit more on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
But he actually went with Hydra for this fight, and it made sense. We were playing Wedding Party and Scientific Samples. The threat was 20. Yep.
Oh, you're starting big. Nice.
Yeah. I won priority, and so it was my secures, and he chose 20, and I was like, my God, like, because the other option was 17, and basically my fear was like Kingpin Crims, and this is another reason why I wouldn't call myself a better player, in that Kingpin Crims is probably the worst matchup for me, and it's obviously a very common affiliation. And at 17, like I was saying, I can't really get much displacement that will help me against these kind of big potatoes that they can stick on secures. So when I saw that he picked 20, I was like, oh, thank God. And then when I saw that he picked Hydra as well, I was like, okay, still, it doesn't mean this is an easy game by any means, but I was like, I felt a bit brave, a bit bolder going into it. Whereas when you see your Rhino, Kingpin, and all the other, A-Bomb often against you. You're like, God, this is gonna be tough. Yeah.
You can chew through it, but I guess, yeah, with the wedding poppers.
Yeah.
So what team did you bring along to deal with? Well, I guess you didn't know it was Hydra at this stage.
No, yeah, I didn't. So I had Miles and X-23, and then I had Bishop and Jane, because at 20 I'm normally going with my 2 5s and then a 4 and 2 3s to make the 20.
Nice.
So it gets me a little bit of everything. And I was really excited to try Bishop out because he's not obviously terrible anymore, which is such a nice change.
Yeah.
And he's got the size 4 throw. So I thought if they were taking Rhino, because obviously Rhino can just aggressive from Jane's builder, which is pretty rough.
Yeah.
And so I thought having him would be good. And also wedding party is kind of good for him in that he doesn't have to worry about running around too much. He can just shoot people on points and then hopefully walk up and throw them off.
Yeah, and there's kind of a weird like synergy with his power overload thing, where in the cleanup phase he removes a power if he's on the thing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think your chances of him having all that power and not being dazed in the cleanup phase are pretty low. So like hopefully, because he's also naturally leans towards a model you'd want to activate towards the end anyway, that you should be okay to use all that power and then kind of not be worrying about taking the damage. But I'm not saying it won't ever happen.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, also this crisis does help. And then scientific samples, God, I can't remember what that does. Is play it.
That's you gain a power the first time you roll a skull.
Yeah, and it's like a DMAP setup, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Which when I looked at his extracts when we were doing priority and stuff, I did actually think because I think he had scrolls and something else, and those two were much stronger for me as extracts. When I saw this drawn, I was like, yeah, this isn't good.
Yeah.
And the DMAP is a little bit awkward for me because I want my guys to be doing midline pressure. If I've got to drop someone back to pick up, my home thing, it can just, it takes a bit of the early pressure away. But I still had a very good turn one, but I was scared of Hydra turn one on Wedding Party because of what you had told me about your little trick. But yeah, I'll tell you what AJ bought. So basically, after we had deployed, we had set it up that we had Red Skull 2, the Hydra leader, 1, and Bill, who had Sleeper Agent on one kind of wedding party. So, and there was a big size 4 right next to that wedding party. So I was worried. And he was against my Cable and X-23. And then on the other side, he had Abomination, Black Cat, and Zemo versus Jane, Bishop, and Miles. So those were kind of the two kind of lanes.
The Bishop can use Abomination's a bit of a bowling ball.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So the thing that I was a little bit surprised about was that AJ let me grab both side extracts. I think understandably, maybe from our previous game, he didn't want to stick someone in front of Cable, even though Bill's an obvious kind of resilient extract holder.
Yeah.
So he let me grab both of those, but he also had a turn 1 threat from Red Skull. So I think he felt okay about letting that happen. And then I had Bishop.
Sorry, I wanted to ask, do you use cat and mouse?
Yes, sorry. Yeah,
So
this
do
is
you
a big
bump
part.
up?
Yeah. So I'm pretty much always playing that on Cable, always bumping up to, and then you can, even Toad, I think you can get within the 3 range after you place 2 do. I think he's then out of a terrain throw. But against Toad, you're always just moving again and then throwing a size 2 and then shooting him anyway. Obviously, there's now with Inhumans people who can, like Quicksilver, get away from you very efficiently.
Sure.
But yeah, I rarely ever use it on another character. It's pretty much always Cable to get him up the board and threaten someone who's going to, like Bill, and you always deploy Cable last so that you can say, okay, he's going here to try, and if this person comes to pick up this extract, they're going to hopefully days and I'll take it back.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so Bishop picked up my home extract, and then we have the kind of early turn 1 plays. So Miles on one side I got attacked by A-Bomb, and that meant, and this is one of my favorite things to do, preserve the dream on Jane. She pays a power, she moves forward small towards the characters advancing. Suddenly she just needs to move and attack.
That's pretty cool. Get her on the midline immediately.
Yeah, you can obviously use it on X-23 as well but most of the time you got to balance a bit when it's a 4 extract thing like this. You need your characters to have the power to pick up the extracts.
Yeah.
And when I saw that he was going to let me grab 2 side ones, I was just like, great, let's do it.
Yeah.
And also when I saw that he had the Hydra Troopers right next to Red Skull, I thought, okay, it doesn't look like he's going for the...
I guess you had priority, so you can prevent that.
Yeah. I can't remember what my turn 1 move did. I think it was to get someone both on a extract and a secure. So yeah, that makes sense that he didn't go for that. But yeah, so Jane is then able... He moves up Zemo and Black Cat to the secure. And then I have Bishop move up within range to shoot Zemo on turn 2. Jane, I actually send into Black Cat because he wasn't able to get A-Bomb quite on the point because of a bit of terrain. So I was like, powering him up at this point doesn't really do me that much. He's got that medium move, so I was just kind of like, I'd rather just get some early damage into Black Cat. I did. My dice were kind, even though, no crits and no rerolls and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I spent 3 power to throw a size 1 into Zemo, which you're probably thinking, like, why? But the thing is, I was just like, I need Zemo and Black Cat, like, dead yesterday. Like, they need to go. And so, and so I threw it. And also then it's like, Zemo's a 5 health mod. He's got nothing to help him against the size 1. And there's no other big terrain around I can throw anyway. And I want to clear stuff so that A-Bomb can't throw it either.
Sure.
And he takes 1 damage. And that actually ends up being really crucial in turn 2 when Bishop is able to double tap him before he gets to activate.
Nice.
Because I'd done that 1 early damage into him.
Nice.
And then I was also like, Jane's still getting enough power at this point to charge anyway. I was feeling fine about that. And then on the other side, he does attack X-23 with Red Skull, but leaves her alive on 1 because, 623, she's amazing.
Oh, yeah, she always... God damn, X-23.
Yeah, and then poor Bill gets absolutely obliterated by Cable. I also throw the size 4 to stop him, because this is my favorite thing about Cable, is that because he's got the range 3 to pick up terrain, someone like Bill, who, moves right next to that size 4, is thinking, great, I can throw that. You just pick it up from behind him and then lob at him, and then suddenly he's got to be moving to get to the other big bits of terrain around you.
Yeah, and I guess because he's sleeper agent, you can't brace, so you want to get rid of that terrain as fast as possible.
Yes, yeah, I was super scared of the brace. I think that was pretty much it for the early play, because he then burned his brace on the size 4, so suddenly I'm like, great, this is really, really good.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Bill was left on a couple of health, but I was still feeling pretty confident about both these parties.
Nice, yeah. I mean, burning the brace round 1 is so good because you've got Jane and Abomination next to each other, and Jane can, like I say, bowling ball A-Bomb if she wants to.
Yeah, and also the great thing about having priority with X-Force is that you've just done a bunch of damage to people, and now it's your turn again. You're ready to daze them.
Yeah.
Obviously, with X-23 being alive on 1, I go with her. She cleans through Bill very easily, frenzies into Red Skull, and then spenders him as well.
Nice.
I do get him, but then he burns his recow, I think, to then stay alive on 1.
Nice.
But I'm still like, this is a good X-23 turn.
Yeah.
And I'm on the point because of great movement off the spender. He then is forced to go with Red Skull because Red Skull's alive on 1 and just doesn't quite get the damage he needs through to kind of have a good activation there. Cable is obviously buffing X-23's dice and stuff.
So does he tries to daze X-23 and presumably also wants to get Cable?
I think he was leaving Cable alone at this point. If I remember, he wanted the extract off X-23 was the main thing.
Sure.
Or maybe he was going after Cable to try and shut down that side of the board. But either way, he didn't do enough kind of to either of them. And then on the other side of the board, Bishop dazes Zemo before he can activate. I think Jane just kind of does enough into Black Cat. I think he gets some staggers off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But on that side of the board, I still feel fairly in control and leaving A-Bomb alone. And then when he does get Prio the next round, he just doesn't quite do enough with A-Bomb on that side of the board. Mm-hmm. And, Cable and X-23 start dishing out the damage and kill Bill. And then I think the big activation on the other side of the board is Bishop. Moves once, spends, I think it was 9 power to do his spender. Oh, no, because I think I moved. So yeah, because I was definitely on the point, spended. and then I shot someone else as well. So I was on the point. Spender hits the wild each time to push everyone away from him on his spender as well. He's doing like 8-9 dice into them also, a lot of damage as well. Yeah. And then perhaps insult to injury is Zemo's still injured but alive. I shoot Zemo, so he's left on 1. And then I generate the power to then throw Black Cat into him, and he is KO'd.
Nice.
At this point, I am apologizing to AJ quite profusely because when we last played, my dice were amazing, and again they were really, really good, and he was rolling very bad defense dice. So yeah, it was it felt a little bit. It felt like things were going my way often throughout the game.
Yeah,
and I think from that was kind of sealing the victory there for that activation.
Yeah. So what was the final score?
So the final score was 16-6.
Oof, it's a pretty one-sided. I mean, it sounds like you had a really good setup for this map with round 1, and probably AJ being wary of that allowed you to get that extract advantage, and then he just couldn't quite catch it up again. But I mean, yeah, your list is built for these kind of central fights where you can really, if your dice are decent, they don't even have to be very good. They're decent, you can get a real advantage. I really like that preserve the dream play. Yeah, that's really nice.
It can work really well.
Because the problem with Mighty Thor I've found is if you can keep her off a point that's like out of medium, especially early, she often has to choose either to just double move, and then your 5 threat just double moving round 1. It's kind of a bit like...
Yeah, and also it's great on Jane because she's then got the power to pick up an extract still if you need it. Yeah,
or if you don't, she's still able to charge next turn to get her rerolls, so even if you displace her, she can get back. No, that's really good. Well done. A great start to the day.
Yeah.
Let's move on to round 2. Right, so round 2, you've shown us what X-Force can do. You're 1-0. You're going up the tables. Where do you land? Who do you face?
So I play against Mike Porter, and he is a very, very good player who I faced before at WTC, he was on one of the Irish teams.
The Stag Do team, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Stag Do team. He beat me very, very easily, I'll say. And when I was looking at the end of round 1 as to who else was 1-0, I saw that he was playing in humans, and I knew how good a player he was, and I thought, that's probably the worst draw I could get. And it proved to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and humans were the big bad at this event, weren't they? There were like 7 of them, and it was the most, 7 out of 40, so about 20% almost of people playing in humans.
Yeah. But I will say Mike is a really nice guy, very, very good player. He, I think, is one of those people where he's very clean about how he plays the game and wants to make sure you're both kind of on the same level and nothing's getting miscommunicated or whatever. So I had an enjoyable game against him.
Nice.
So we get matched up and we play Spider Infected as the extract and then Wedding Party again as the secure. I have lost priority. He's gone with his extracts as obviously I would have picked mine if I'd won priority.
That's a tough priority loss, actually. That's a big roll.
Yeah. I have played Inhumans a few times now prior to this match as well. I got beaten by them at a BMC tournament the week before, and that was Wedding Party on their extracts as well. I can't remember exactly what extract it was. I think it was the Scrolls. And I went with 20 threat there, and it didn't work out. And when I played Inhumans previously in the last weekend, it was the final for my pod, and it was 17 against Inhumans, and I was 1 dice roll from drawing it 16-16. So I thought, okay, this time I'll go 17. I was thinking I'll try and limit his ability, to go wider than me and stuff. But I think that was where the mistakes started being made. So his 17, he said to me, is probably one of the best in the game, and I don't disagree. You've got Voodoo, Karnak, Black Bolt, Quicksilver, and Toad. It's just good stuff, isn't it? And mine was Cable on the 3s, so Cable, Miles, X-23, Domino, and Deadpool. My plan was basically win the secures and hunt down his extract holders like Toad and just shoot them and win, which, as you can tell, maybe wasn't my best thought out plan. I did feel I'd pushed the Inhumans play in the last weekend quite far, so I was like, I'll go with this instead. But the key, I think, for this matchup is being able to get your early pressure in, because obviously they're pressuring you with their ability to dive, as Mike did, and not really care too much about the extracts. But with Wedding Party, you are scoring 4 if you can get them both. So even on a 4 extract, Spider Infect is 5, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so even on a 5 extract where he does win all the extracts turn 1, you're only 5-4 down, as I had in the first round, because I was able to get my guys on the secures as he had run away.
Yeah, they have to run away with them because the character's on that tank. So did he get all 5?
Exactly.
Oh, so sorry, just talk us through a little bit how he did that.
Yeah, okay. So he has priority. He safe grabs with Toad, the middle.
Yep.
Then I pick up one with Domino. He then dives with Quicksilver, to pick up my other one. Then Voodoo moves forward, attacks Domino once, has enough power because people have given it to them, possess her.
Yeah.
And I think then Karnak I think because he does that quite late, and again, this is probably a mistake from me, I'd activated most of the people who would be able to pick up that extract after Domino had got it, and it meant that Karnak could, I think, then pick it up from there. I could be remembering that a little bit wrong, but basically, I think the key thing was the Voodoo possession.
Yeah, maybe that's where you go with Cable there instead, so that it's a 5 threat, and you have to spend much more power with Voodoo.
Yeah, I mean, it lined up that Miles and Cable were on one side, one Wedding Party, and then X-23, Domino, and Deadpool were on the other. So I wanted to, my goal in Inhumans is to try and daze Black Bolt as fast as possible to stop the bunkering up, because then at least I can actually target his extract holders.
Yeah, I guess you don't have the displacement.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the key thing for me in this matchup is getting the early pressure in as much as possible. And I missed a Preserve the Dream that I probably should have done, because then I could have done an attack into Voodoo round 1. And then I also, my dice with Cable into double tapping a Black Bolt, which, he's obviously, he's got 6 health and he's got the extra dice from his thing. But on the first attack, he doesn't, because he spent the power. Well, he's given out the power often to other people.
Yeah.
And my dice were just nowhere. I couldn't get more than 1 or 2 successes, and that's the thing with X-Forces. Sometimes you run into that problem. But the ideal thing would be double tap, gain at least 3 power, which I don't think is out beyond the realm possibility, and then throw the size 3 that was right next to me either into Black Bolt or into Quicksilver, who has no power, who's hiding behind it.
Yeah.
I do want to quickly comment and say that the terrain on 2 of my games was unfortunately quite sparse. In X-Force, that does add up, unfortunately. And when there's only 2 size 3s and everything else is a 2 or 1, there's not that many of them. Your opponent's brace is very powerful.
Yeah, that's tough.
And when your dice also aren't going your way, unfortunately, he was able to save it for when I finally was able to throw that size 3. Yeah. And then I've got no one on the other side of the board who can actually even throw the size 3 over there. So, it felt a little bit bad, but, a lot of those tables were amazing. I did play on the Danger Room table later, which was really, really fun. But it was noticeable, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. I guess you're 5-4 down at the end of round 1, but he's got all the extracts and he's got priority.
Yes,
he's got Black Bolt who can do some damage.
Yeah, it quickly goes that way. And Mike played well. I tried to preserve the dream at different points to get myself back in and on the points. And I was able to daze some people and stuff, and occasionally I got back 1 or 2 extracts, but Mike just plays very well. You're able at that point to also have quite a mathematical view of the game, where it's like, okay, I just need to throw this person off, then move here, and then I'm getting X points. Yeah. And Terragenesis obviously played a part as well.
Yeah, okay.
So Mike played really well. He clearly knows this team very well as well. Yeah, unfortunately, it can be a rough game into Inhumans.
Yeah. So what was the final score, dare I ask?
Final score was 20 to Mike and 9 to me. And I don't think I played that badly. I just never got the ball rolling. And I think Wedding Party, actually, as I was saying earlier, when the opponent can no-sell you with characters like Quicksilver, they are able to play that very well, kind of like how they always go for Infinity Formula as well, because it's quite good to get your extra much, then just abandon 1 point and say goodbye to the characters on that side.
Yes.
So I think definitely I should have gone with 20 threat. I asked him what his 20 would have been, and he would have just have added Gorgon to that. And I think also when I looked at his roster, he didn't have any size 4s, which made me think, oh, I don't really need Jane then. I can go with 17. But I think having Jane and Panther in this game would have really, really helped a lot to get the damage in and also chase down those extract holders. So just made some early mistakes, and definitely Mike took advantage.
I mean, look, Mike's a great player. He got into the top pod in the end.
Yes, really, really good player.
Also, I guess Inhumans, not only are they very, very strong, but they're also quite new. So we're still learning like the tricks against them and how we got to tech against them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough time, but you're going into lunch 1-on-1. That's pretty good effort. So why don't we pause there, have some lunch, and come back refreshed for game 3. Okay, so you're refreshed after lunch. You're back at the tables for round 3. What and who do you see across the table from you?
So just as I'm still feeling the pain from Inhumans, I am matched against another really good player, Andrea, who's playing Inhumans.
Right, he was playing Inhumans before it was cool as well.
Yeah, I gotta say that. Yeah, he isn't jumping on the hype train. He's very loyal Inhumans. Don't know why. Who likes Inhumans really? But it was my opponent we played only a couple of times before. But I also want to say Andrea was a real good spot in this game because I very annoyingly had some work calls out of nowhere during the game. I had to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes away, but he was very gracious and patient with me. I apologize for that happening, but thankfully he was really nice about it.
Doesn't work realize that you've got more important things to do?
I don't know what they were thinking. I was literally like, what are you doing? No, it was great, but it was fine, and luckily it was literally 2 minutes max. I do want to thank him for that. So this was another one where it was, well, for first, Archie say I won priority. That was big.
Nice.
Yeah, I felt really good about that. So the crisis was Alien Ship as the extract and Infinity Formula as the secure. Those are both 17, so Andrea picks 17. And this is why one of the weaknesses with Alien Ship is that it is 17, and sometimes I really want the option for 18. My other 2 extracts are 18. So I've been thinking about Deadly Legacy Virus instead.
Yeah, okay.
But maybe that is also really bad to Humans. So yeah, in the end, I was like, oh, I really love 18 on Infinity Formula. It's much better for me. But we had 17. And because of the punishing loss last game, I kind of thought I just wanted to try something different into Inhumans and see how it felt.
Yeah.
So I went with 3 4s in Cable, which, it's okay. But basically, my thinking was Panther and Wolverine are on separate sides because they love to charge into the opponent's home infinity, throw them off, and then they're quite resilient, so they can kind of soak up a bit of damage and stick there. And then Cable and Bishop on my back ones because they can shoot into theirs. Bishop is great because if they walk up to his, he can throw them off. And so I felt that was a nice even split.
Yep.
However, given the lessons of the previous game, I should have remembered that, as we were talking about, Inhumans can no-sell you on flanks very well. And having a nice even plan isn't going to cut it against them.
Especially if they don't have the extract.
Yeah, it was, again, Andrea played very well, and I also made some deployment mistakes. And I think I also tried to do what AJ did, of trying to bait them into picking up an extract near me. And then actually that being a mistake, ultimately Cable was quite out of position. His Black Bolt was then able to double tap Cable and daze him round 1. Which I should be the one doing that. When it's happening to you, it's not going well. The early pressure from me was not really there. But at this point, I'm thinking, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's early game. I'm still in this. And then I think I leave Black Bolt alive on 1 health for the rest of the game. Doesn't matter what I do, I just can't get him off not even daze him, sorry. And then Quicksilver is a menace on the other side to Black Panther and Wolverine. Wolverine rolls no wilds, obviously. Why would he do that on a charge? And Quicksilver is just dancing around them. And again, I know Andrea knows this list very well. And sorry, I should say he had pretty much the same as Mike, but instead of Karnak, he had Miss Marvel. So Black Bolt.
Oh, Miss Marvel.
And she was good. Yeah, I liked her because of the transform. She could really get around the table very, very
Yeah,
well.
sure.
And she can throw people around. None of my guys are bigger than size 2, apart from Colossus. Black Bolt rolling really good defense. Cable wants to have a big turn at like turn 3, but leaves Voodoo and Black Bolt alive on 1.
Sounds like the story of your game.
Yeah, it was. The alien ships did nothing. Andrea refused to roll any Skulls or Wilds. So yeah, well done him. And then again, the terrain was pretty sparse. I would say it was a size 4 and then a size 3 on one side, but everything else I felt quite light. But still, we'll say it was a really well run event. Just unfortunate. And again, that happens with tournaments. You run into tables, it's not as good. But yeah, I think he just had better tools for the secure. I think I got so hung up about the extracts that I didn't actually think. No, he probably has a really good plan for secures as well. I think my 5 wide 17 would have been better, but I still don't think on Infinity it's that strong. Yeah, he did well. I should have waited longer for him to place his Voodoo and then decide where Cable was going to go. But it was well played by Andrea.
Yeah, I guess this one's tricky because there's only 3 extracts, so he can't win just purely on extracts. But what he can do is, as you say, he can collapse a flank. So he can grab all the extracts and run to one side of the table. And then suddenly your 2 killy 4 threats are facing the whole team.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Panther was able to get over to the other side, as was Wolverine, because I used Weapon X program to throw himself small to get him that last bit, and then he picked up an extract. And I was killing his stuff towards the end, but often there was just not enough kind of going on. And I had one play which I really thought was going to turn things around. So he's trying to beat up Cable. He's trying to remove him from the table because he got the round 1 days. And so now he's going into Black Bolt. And again, Black Bolt at this point, I'd hoped to have days to stop worrying about this, but he's around and he's trying to double tap Cable. So attacks him first time. Cable's got 3 or 4 damage left on him. So I'm like, okay, I've got an effect. I'm going to warpath over to here. Not even, obviously I'm doing the towards angle, but I'm actually just moving a little bit. And then I've set myself up now that on the second attack, I'm in range to a bishop for sacrifice, which I then do. So now Cable, because sacrifice says the targeted character cannot add extra dice, he then adds extra dice to Bishop's defense. So Bishop is rolling 6 dice energy defense against Black Bolt's 6 dice energy attack. And Bishop is reverse piercing on the wilds. Bishop as well at this point has taken 1 damage. So I'm like, this is great. I've kept Cable alive. And now Bishop's going to get a bunch of power. He can throw this terrain near him. I can spend it, blah, blah, blah. He then does his attack. He gets 7 damage. I roll no blocks, no wilds. Bishop is 1-shot dazed. And I think that was pretty deciding. God. I thought I'd absolutely played it because Andrea was like, wait, you can add extra dice with Cable set. I was like, yeah, you can. And it did not work out. But, sometimes that happens.
Those wilds, they're never there when you want them.
It's a fun play. It didn't work out.
Well, so what was the final score on this one?
So final score on this one was 18-8 to Andrea.
18-8. Yeah. So a little better than the last game, but marginally.
Yeah. Still a convincing win for him. And again, he did very well on that day as well. Yeah. So all credit to him. Yeah, knows his stuff when it comes to humans for sure.
Yeah. Well, commiserations 1 and 2, but you've got an opportunity to make up for it in the last round. So let's see how you do. Right, Harry, last game of the day. Let's get a big win to finish us off and go even into the next round. Who are you facing across the table and what are you playing against?
So, round 4, I'm thinking I'm going to be on this podcast and I'll talk about how I went 1-3 with X-Force. But
yeah, actually, after you won your first game, we were like, well, you're on now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I might not come on if it's 0-4.
Yeah, no. So I'm playing against Rob Duck, who's another London player, really friendly guy. I played against him a few times. I think he's normally got the better of me, I think, in those games. And he's playing Guardians on that day, so we play M-Crown Crystals to secure and Inhumans deployed advanced weaponry.
Nice.
And I won priority, and we go with, I believe, the threat it's not marked down on Longshanks, but
What characters do you bring?
yeah. So I bring Jane, Cable, Miles, X-23, and Domino. So it must be 19. Yeah, and I believe he had Nova, Star-Lord, Yondu, Drax, and Bill. And after those two Inhumans games, I'm like, you know what? This is good on SMCP. This is two sides who just want to shoot each other.
Yeah.
It's all very midliney. There's a nice secure.
Yeah.
None of us have got like a pay to flip advantage or anything.
Yeah.
And it's just it's I was looking forward to it.
You both are like sit back and just gun people, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's kind of your thing. You're both similar. One's from the future, one's from space, and it's what's better.
My experience into Guardians of X-Force as well is that sometimes it can be it is a very dicey game. Like, you can get advantages in different ways, but yeah, you both want to shoot each other, you both got rerolls, and it's maybe one person going to be more resilient, is one person can get some early damage, is one person going to be able to lead into something else. I was cautious of it because I played against Guardians before last weekend, and they definitely did a number on me, but Rob's roster was mainly about going fairly wide. Apart from Nova, he didn't have any of the big, I at least from what I remember, the big kaijus that you kind of expect in Guardians. So I was a little bit relieved at that, but still cautious. I also want to talk about how amazing the table is, made by Hannah. The Danger Room table is so cool, obviously so thematic for my guys as well. I was right next to the really cool Limbo table that they have.
I've not played on either of them yet, and I need to get on those. Yeah, they're great.
Definitely after the last two tables in terms of terrain, that was a lot of size 3s and a couple of size 4s. So I was feeling good about that. And then, literally kind of what I described from game 1, just your really good early pressure of Preserve the Dream on Jane. She then does a bunch of damage into his Bill, and then Bill, who's picked up an extract as well, I then throw the size 4 right next to him to take that away from him. He burns Brace there. That means when I go with Cable, he's able to double tap Drax, who's come to the other side to pick up an Inhuman weapon, and then also throw terrain into him to daze him.
Nice, yeah.
I'd actually forgotten that Drax has damage reduction, and his whole Nemesis token, whatever it is, where so I was have I misplayed it? But I think luckily the dice were a little bit kind. But I think the crucial thing with Cable is if you can get that Incinerate off on the first attack on his wild, then suddenly you're really hopefully spike on that second attack when they're only rolling 2 defense.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, sorry, just going to the Brace thing. Like, I think Brace is so powerful, is far more powerful when you only have one character that can throw stuff. Whereas clearly, like, you benefit so much more from them burning the Brace when you have Jane on one side and Cable on the other, which are both throwing. So it's quite interesting. I think a lot of people think, oh, you need Brace against like Magneto Brotherhood. But actually, I would argue it's more powerful against a list that has one really good throw rather than lots of throws, because it then becomes far more impactful late game.
It's also a card that increases in value the longer you don't play it. I think obviously I don't think Rob was wrong to use Brace on Bill, but at that point, you're still fairly early into the game, and obviously I'm throwing a size 4, but I'm doing that on purpose to burn your Brace, So you kind of have to, it's a mini game for the opponent to worry about. And when you are playing a team like mine, you're like, okay, don't use it. That's fine. I've just done a bunch of damage. I've taken your extract. Great.
Yeah.
It can really then increase in value when you're like, oh God, I need to daze this person, but they've still got Brace up. And that's what happened against Mike. But it's difficult because it relies a lot on player skill to know when you're going to use it, and it's a very difficult decision.
Yeah, and so often hindsight's a wonderful thing.
I
should have played Brace.
And again, you're like, for me, if you're not using it early on, I'm like, cool, like, thank you, like, this is really good. And you have to play the rest of the game well so that you're still up on point or you're still in the game, so that when you do use it, it's really impactful. And I played games against opponents where they have done that, and it's worked out well for them. But it's I've got the throw on Miles as well to throw characters, so it was a tough decision for Rob. It was then up on extracts because of that, and then he had Bill and Yondu on one side, and unfortunately, he did throw away Jane, which is, the good play to do.
Yeah.
And he was kind of keeping her a little bit contained, and he was able to daze Domino on that side as well. But I was just, I had removed Drax top of round 2 with priority. So suddenly he's a character down with just Star-Lord and Nova on that side. And I have to say, I wasn't overly impressed with Nova. I don't think he did loads against me. I could be proven differently in another game, but he didn't.
Yeah, I guess he's a move and punch kind of guy,
Yeah.
which on those kind of maps, like when you're really having to fight, that's pretty tough for your 5 threats doing that.
Yeah. And when you're playing Guardians and you need to punch back into someone after they've just taken away, a fairly tanky damage dealer for you, he's maybe not the best option.
Yeah.
And Mars and X-23 were doing their usual annoying thing of staying alive, perhaps longer than they should have.
Yeah.
And Cable was just having dream activations of good dice, throwing size 3, size 4s, and then also just placing away behind the Mcran crystal slightly. Even though obviously they've got long range guns, you're just forcing them to kind of work that little bit harder. Yeah, it kind of snowballed from there. There were attacks I was doing where I was like, well, I'll just throw a cheeky, builder into this person with 1 attack. And then, oh, look at that, 6 damage kind of thing. So it was one of those games for Rob, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this Crisis matchup is just so good for me. Like, it's really plays to the team's strengths.
Yeah.
Kind of everything was performing as it should. And even though he did a fairly good job of keeping Jane, not allowing her to dominate too much, she's still holding an extract and, is an 8 health character and is able to go around flipping points at worst. Yeah, it worked well. He did get to use that call for backup card on Nova, which was quite cool. But again, just didn't quite have the impact. Even when he did the big beam that he's got as a spender as well, yeah, sadly, it just wasn't quite enough. Yeah, it was a really good fun game. Final score was 2010.
All right, so you've swung your VP difference well there, yeah.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And I was very happy to go to, I think, with some different, perhaps kind of draws on the others. I might have been able to go one better, but 2 losses to Inhumans isn't something I am ashamed of in any way.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, so for my games, I ended up going 3-1 on day 1, but I did manage to avoid Inhumans.
Yeah.
So I got lucky because it's all about matchups, and I guess Inhumans is a tough matchup for most these days, and particularly for a team like X-Force where you just want them to have to sit to hold extracts. That's tough. But against Guardians, evidently, like a shoot off X-Force coming out on top on that one.
Yeah, and also again, like saying, it's good on SMCP. They haven't got too many. Neither of you got many tricks, right? Nothing is crazy kind of evasion that you're gonna have to worry about. It's all I'm gonna double walk to this point. I'm gonna pick it up.
Yeah,
and that means that I can take advantage of that. And get that early pressure in, because you actually don't want the game going on ages when you're playing X-Force. Like I always describe it as a bit of a bully affiliation. You just want to bully people, take their extracts, and then hopefully score out and get the key days.
And then win. Yeah.
The teams that can take that damage and hold on to their extracts are a lot tougher to play against. But I had 4 fun games. It was a really, really good day as well. My usual heroes were doing very well, X-23 and people like that, just punching above their weight and doing what they should. And Cable have a love-hate relationship with, and that when he does well, he will win you that game, and then he will often lose you it too. But I think as well, like I really like playing them, but they are like still in that probably like B, C tier. Like unfortunately, a lot of the other teams have got some really nice tactics cards where I think Preserve the Dream I like, but it's just nowhere near the power level of a lot of other affiliations. But no, it was good fun games.
Yeah, good. Well, let's pause there and we'll have a little bit of a debrief and maybe hear about how Ron did.
Yeah.
I don't mind being wrong, as long as I can correct my mistakes.
So 2-2 to finish the GT. I mean, it was a really strong field. So to go 2-2, you must be pretty pleased, especially with X-Force, who you love playing with. You ended up in the 3rd pod, did you say? And so how did Ron fare with X-Force?
Yeah, so going in cold, he won 1 and lost 2, I believe. And maybe this is mean of me, but I don't think I even messaged him like any tips or anything. I was just like, yeah, here's the list. I mean, they're not like a crazy, there's no tricks inherent in it. That it's mainly just cat and mouse and see what your dice do, really.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think obviously I have, loads of practice with them, so I kind of know what I should be picking and stuff.
You probably could have done with doing a little bit worse on day one for Ron, because
maybe
actually, everyone's gone 2 and 2 in your pod, so they all know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think he definitely played against Jamie, who was playing Weapon X. Jamie actually messaged me to be like, we normally always play each other against each other in tournaments. And you've managed to dodge me this time by subbing Ron in. Yeah, I think also, if I remember correctly, Ron is saying that he wants to try and play loads of different models this year. So I hope that X-Force has ticked that for him.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Won't take offense if he doesn't go rushing to play them again.
Yeah, so I guess, how did you feel after the tournament? Obviously, you had 2 big wins. You had quite swingy wins, I guess. You had 2 big wins and 2 big losses. Losses granted against Inhumans with a bit of an asterisk there, but it sounds like it's a feast or famine kind of affiliation.
Definitely. I think they turn your bad dice often into average dice, and then your average dice into great dice. So it is one of it's a dicey affiliation, but that's also one of the reasons why I really like it. I hope that my opponents agree that I don't take bad dice too badly. I think it makes me just laugh. Like, I never expect Wolverine to roll a wild on his charge, so when he does, it's such a funny feeling. Yeah, I think I definitely understand that if you're looking for a more consistent playstyle, then you're probably better off with other affiliations.
Yeah.
But when it goes well, it goes so well. It is really cool to see these characters kind of on fire. I think, my 2 losses, I learned some mistakes, and I also think they were actually examples of a kind of player issue where I was overthinking and second guessing myself. Whereas the 2 games that I won, I think I was much more relaxed because I was kind of just like, yep, this is my plan, this is what I normally do, and I wasn't trying to think, how can I think the opponent by surprising them with something. I was just like, yeah, this is my plan. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Whereas in those 2 Inhumans losses, I would think I was so kind of trying to think about how their different tricks were going to play out that actually I probably should have just stuck to my guns and not tried to deviate from something that normally works well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think a lot of people can make that mistake, myself included. Like, you've got to stick with what you know, and I guess if you're confident in your affiliation, like you've played enough games with it, you know what they're good at, you've got to stick with plan A to start. And then if you're teching against something, that's like one character that's come in to do a job.
Yeah.
Rather than if you try and change your whole game plan, there's a reason why you've taken the reps and done, and you know what you're doing. So there's a reason why you know what your plan A is. And I think that is definitely something that people fall foul of, especially when they're playing against, I guess Inhumans is a classic case where they've been massively hyped, like on all the discords and stuff, and they are fantastic, don't get me wrong, they're a great affiliation, but you can get in your own head about them. They're just another affiliation with a good leadership. Like, your affiliation can do work against them as well. So I guess you got to stick to your guns, and if they don't work, then at least you've been true to yourself.
Exactly. And I think you can then evaluate, well, what is it about my normal game plan that maybe isn't working and that I could potentially deviate from? Whereas if you go into something that, like in my second game against them, that is wildly kind of different from what you're usually doing. I think also probably a lack of practice on those maps. Like, I don't play the maps too often. I think they're actually fairly good for X-Force, but I think I went in with the mindset of how do I challenge both flanks without thinking of what my opponent is then going to do against that. So my original 17 of the 3s are a bit more mobile and can pivot without putting too much threat saturation on one side of the board, then have to kind of reconfigure. But I think the other thing was maybe like the highs and lows of Wedding Party as well, where like when it's working for you, it's obviously great, but then just it's a difficult. It's obviously fighty, but it's not as fighty as you think, and it's not quite Fisk levels of that. And because it's 20 threat as well, it is something you have to think about for how teams can go wide, and a lot depends on the extract too. So yeah, I think it's also a cool example of how the game is designed, that one Sakura isn't going to dominate completely in maybe the way that Fisk does, perhaps slightly too much, because the extracts will still be important.
Yeah. So going forward, you're obviously going to be playing X-Force for a bit. You've got Nations and I guess also WTC. We're on a team
Yes, very
for
exciting.
that. And I think you're thinking about X-Force for that. So what changes would you make following the GT? Anything you want to try out?
So yeah, I think Wedding Party will stay, just because I'm not sure. Like, I'd be tempted by Mutant Madman because it's 18, it's a B map, and I think I can do it well. But the dominance of Apocalypse just means that they can play that a lot better than me, and it really adds to their strengths. Whereas Wedding Party, I think, into Apocalypse is actually quite good, because it really forces them to stay around and get beaten up.
It was actually kind of interesting at this event. There were very few Apocalypse players.
Yeah.
Surprisingly few. I think, Pat had to withdraw from illness, and I know he's a big Apocalypse man. I don't know if he was going to play it, but maybe we just lost some of the Apocalypse players.
Yeah.
Maybe they just couldn't come.
It's still, I think, like, from a non kind of playing perspective, you've got to get Apocalypse, who's not an inexpensive model, and then you've got to have access to quite a wide pool of mutants, which, unless like me, that's something you've gone hard on anyway. Like, you might not always have the access to those models, unless obviously you're a player who really likes to just kind of collect the recent releases and stuff.
Yeah.
So it might be a bit of that, and also there's a lot to learn. I remember listening to Pat on the Across Bifrost episode where he's talking about when to use the rerolls from the tokens and when to spend them as power. Is quite a high player skill level thing to choose. So they're not a pick up and you have a good tournament kind of team. I didn't think there's actually too many of those, if at all. But I think they require a lot of investment for sure.
Yeah, and also I think the great thing I like about MCP is the landscape changes all the time, so you're constantly having to adapt. So maybe people are bored of Apocalypse. Maybe they've played him enough and they want to try something new. And that probably happened with Inhumans. They're riding the wave at the moment, but maybe they'll go down in popularity as people have had enough of playing them.
Yeah, I think I'm still, jury's still out on Alien Ship versus Deadly Legacy. Both kind of have the same shape, obviously, but do very different things. I'm just so scared of Kingpin Crims with Deadly Legacy, or for example, like your Spider Foes list as well. I'm sure I can play that quite well.
Yeah, assembling the virus. But then I suppose you've got someone like Miles who can steal, so it's not awful. Yeah. I actually often these days started, especially on the extracts, looking at the threat. So as long as there's enough extracts on the board, which Legacy is arguably not enough. There's only 3, but then also you can assemble the virus. But like the threat makes a massive difference. Like you say, it sounds like your Cable Jane combo is really strong, and that's where your list starts to sing. Whereas actually at 17, yes, you've got strong 3s, but because you don't have much displacement, it's very dicey. Yeah. And with the prevalence of 17, would you consider taking some more control into the roster?
Yeah, I mean, in the last weekend, one of my games in the pod I was in was against a player who was had also gone 3-1 on day one and was playing Midnight Suns, and he had a 17 of iHulk, Voodoo, Blade, and Bullseye. And my 17 won against that, and I felt pretty good against it on the D map as well, just because iHulk hopefully is mainly on one side of the board where I can keep someone like Miles just to eventually pick his pocket and then run away.
Yeah,
and that was the plan. Cable took care of Voodoo, and then Deadpool took on Bullseye, and the next 23 was just annoying enough to kind of keep the others up. So, like, I don't think it's, like, bad. It's just, when you run into some matchups where you're like, I really could do either, some more flexibility. And, Jane isn't really going to do too much on the D-back in the end, I think. But, I am definitely thinking about making sure I have the option of 18 or 19. But again, part of it is Nations practice, and still need to kind of iron out what the crises are.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about. I'm gutted I can't go to Nations. I'm at a wedding, but
we'll miss you.
Curtis is going in your guys' team, so I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. But because it's pure Highlander, then I guess it's a bit harder. So where there's no crossover between anything in the list, that's tougher.
I think I also, in terms of characters, considering dropping Colossus, because I think he's very power hungry, and like we were saying earlier, doesn't quite get it in X-Force.
Yeah. I guess, is he the only character you didn't take this weekend? Or did you not take Black Panther in the end?
I did take Black Panther, didn't take Colossus. I think that's it. Yeah. I mean, he could have been an option on Wedding Party, but I'm just quite high on Bishop at the moment, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bishop sounded like he did great for you, apart from rolling 6 dice.
Yeah,
with
okay,
no
that was
wilds.
bad. But on Wedding Party, he was really, really good. And I think Colossus would be good on Wedding Party. And I have played him in other games as well. Yeah, I'm just a little bit hesitant on him, and maybe it's better that a 2 comes in. I will say as well, probably quite an obvious omission from my list is Psylocke.
Yeah, of course.
You know, is again another thing where I'm like, she's great in X-Force, not telling you not to play her. But again, we're talking about, I've got all the damage dealers I need. She's a great damage dealer, but just not quite getting there on the other stuff that I need to do into the list. And I just felt that she's often underwhelmed a little bit. Maybe it's just being the victim of bad dice, or you're not playing her in the right place. But I think often, because I would say her strongest setup is like an M-Crown Crystal, but it's like, you know, X-23 and Deadpool and Miles, even Domino to a certain extent, all do that so well for a threat less. Yeah, it can be difficult. Obviously, the choosing attack type is great as well. Yeah. Is that as relevant now? I don't know.
I guess sometimes you don't like vibe with a character. Yeah, that just happens.
Yeah, I also, Curtis really likes her in his list. So when he was like, "Oh, I know it's stuff, but could I take Psylocke?" I was like, actually, yeah, go for it. Like, I think it's. I find X-Force very reliant on the splashes to do the things you need a list to do in order to compete against different affiliations that don't leave you entirely dependent on the dice. Yeah, she's great. You know, if I could have an 11 character, probably be or 2. But at the moment I'm leaning towards either Honey Badger or Rocket to come in for Colossus. But yeah, again, that could be solved with a threat as well. And then I get to live my fastball special Dreams, which I will say in Nations, when opponents may not have brace, if you're able to throw in a Weapon X program, a fastball special, and a Cable Terrain throw, maybe even a Jane Terrain throw, and it's like,
that's not nothing.
That is a lot of damage coming in. So it may be that I live the dream at Nations and then pack it in for WTC. Yeah. But for now, I think he'll stay in.
Nice. Well, great. Well done. Well done on the 2 and 2. It's a shame you couldn't get the second day in, but that's life. So before we finish, where can people find you on all the socials?
So unfortunately I don't very much, but I guess on Discord I am Moonshews. I'm always happy to talk X-Force things there, and I think as well I really like discussing characters that maybe don't see the table as much and where they can have a home.
Yeah, nice.
So I'm always interested to hear what different tech people are cooking up that maybe is a little bit left field.
Yeah, that's right up our street on Cable's Conquests.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I've been trying to post a little bit, but I've not been doing so well recently, but we're getting back on it. At Smeagol's Corner. And then I am Archie_RC on Discord and Archie Cable on the Longshank. So if you want to keep track of our progress, that's where you can find me. So thank you very much for coming on, Harry. It's been great to have you on. And until next time, everybody, keep up the conquest.
The name's Cable. Remember it.